Hello and welcome, I'm Chris Hall and this is a very off-the-record video review. I think we'll go with that as the title. I didn't plan that as the title, but we'll go with it. A very off-the-record video review. Now, I'm going to say here and now that this is going to be fairly minimal on the editing. There's only editing that's going to be into this is realistically just maybe the odd jump cut here and there, just so that I can keep what I'm going to talk about as coherent and concise as I possibly can. It's not going to be like my typical video reviews where it has all the glitz and all the glamour and stuff that I usually have in them. There's going to be no clips from the feature film that I'm talking about. It's not going to be like the Time Shift where I'll talk about a certain area of this feature film, then just fade out to the next one. It's just going to be me talking for however long, maybe with the odd jump cut here and there, just so that I can keep it as coherent as possible. So if you just see me have a sudden twitch or just move from one strange facial expression to the other, then you know why. It's not because I'm having some kind of physical fit. I'm going to be talking about the BBC Radio 1 Rescored Drive experiment. It is an experiment. I can't honestly think of any other words to describe it other than an experiment. Much like Frankenstein's monster, it started with an experiment. Now, this whole project is backed by the director of Drive, Nicolas Winding Refn. Not Winding, right? Winding Refn. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing his name. I've done this intro several times now. I've not got his name right once. It has been done by Radio 1, curated by Zane Lowe. All the music featured within it is original music done by a range of different artists, including Churches, Bastille, and a range of others. And this little review is me talking about it and what I thought about it. Now, I have to say here and now, in the interest of editorial transparency, I am a massive fan of Drive. Drive is, without a shadow of doubt, my favourite movie of all time. So I may be coming at this from a very, very biased angle. I try my best to watch this as unbiasedly as I possibly can, just try and see it as its own movie, though it is difficult to talk about it in that regard because it is the exact same movie as I saw. They didn't edit it, they didn't alter it, it is the same movie. Maybe the gory moments were just sped up a teensy-weensy bit, but it is the same beast, it's the same entity, just with a different soundtrack. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be talking about for the majority of it, and whether or not it worked or whether it failed spectacularly. And well, going into this, I expected to hate it. I expected to hate every single moment of it, to be clawing the walls with anger, be tearing my hair out, be cursing Zane Lowe's name forevermore, wanting to burn down Radio 1 and to craft a Zane Lowe voodoo doll with which to poke with pointy, sharp things for all eternity. And it wasn't helped by the fact that the trailer for Radio 1 Rescored Drive was crap. It has to be said. The music that featured in it, yes, is in the feature film, this little experiment that they did, but not in the same places. There's a moment towards the end of the trailer where they played the Bastille song that Bastille did, but it's in a totally different moment to where it is in this experiment. So he makes that entire moment, which is when the driver's potential girlfriend has just seen him cave a guy's skull in with the sole of his boot, and she's just there like... The music in the background is by Bastille, and it sounds very, very Bleeding Hearts, very over the top and silly. And naturally, when I saw that, I thought, oh, for fuck's sake. I thought I was going to hate every minute of it, but in the end, I didn't hate it. Though, with that said, I didn't love it. I'm going to say, if I haven't already done so already, I've got loads of notes to the left of me, so if I do look away at any moment, it's not because I find you boring, it's just because I need to refer to some bits and bobs here. I've spent way too long thinking about this and writing about it, so I just need to get some things off my chest, and it does help me stop repeating myself any number of times. Even though I can tell you here and now, I'm going to say the word dark and tension more times than is realistically necessary, though that is purely and simply because I need a better thesaurus. I have to say this in the Rescored's favour. I loved the music. I thought the music was fantastic, brilliant, well made, well put together, and like I say, I'm certain that all this music is original, was made especially for this project, and I hope they release it either as a sole soundtrack or just separately each of the artists, because I think it's fantastic. I will be listening to it and playing it, maybe including it on a playlist along with the original music, because I thought the music was great. It was perfectly functional, though probably not appropriate for the movie, strangely enough, even though it was written especially for it. The problem I have with these songs is that though they are fantastic, they don't feel right for the movie. Now, once again, I'm entering this in a very difficult way because I'm a massive fan of the original. I love the original, but it is just too light. It's too fluffy. It's too soft, the music, which I think does damage the movie slightly. Now, one of the key traits to the original score and to the original movie is its hidden darkness. It is a very dark movie. I'm using the word dark a lot in this moment. I'm going to use it a lot more. So if you're playing along at home, whenever I say the word dark, take a shot. Now, the opening song to the original score was Night Call by Kavinsky. This isn't an original song. It is a song which featured in a different movie shortly before appearing in Drive. So it's not originally made, it's a pre-existing song. I don't remember what movie it featured in previously, but that song, and of course it's not the first song to play in the movie. The first one is Tick of the Clock by Chromatics, or The Chromatics, I don't remember the exact name of it, and it's the first song in the title. It's properly in the movie. It's in the opening title sequence, and that song sets the tone for the rest of the movie. This movie is, despite the fact the song itself has this very glossy synth wave tilt towards it, it has this darkness to it, which is very prominent and very prominent within the lyrics and the way the song is constructed, etc, etc. And much like the movie itself, there is this slight gloss to it, but there's hidden depth and darkness to it. With the song that they featured in this time round, you don't get that hidden depth or hint to a hidden depth to this movie. And it's replaced by a song which is very bright and ironically more 80s sounding than the Kavinsky song, which I just find really strange. A lot of people, when they talk about the soundtrack, they say, oh, it's very 80s, isn't it? It sounds very 80s. Well, the opening track to this version sounds incredibly 80s, so 80s it should be shitting a Rubik's Cubes. And in a weird kind of way, this new soundtrack with this new opening song sets the tone of this version. Now, here's the strange thing about it, is that this version of Drive, the Radio 1 Rescored version of Drive, is the same entity as the original. Nothing's been edited, nothing's been cut out, though maybe the violence has been maybe sped up a bit and not lingered on it so much. I think I've said this previously, I don't know, whatever. But this, with the soundtrack in mind, makes the movie feel a lot lighter and a lot softer than it actually is, which is odd. It's this strange juxtaposition because the music is very light, but the actions within the movie are fairly dark. Now, the original soundtrack with the Kavinsky song set the tone for the whole movie, like I said, but also gives us a great hint towards the driver character. This is a dark journey into the life of our lead character. Much like the jacket he wears, it may seem good and pure on the outside, but on the inside, it's dark and murky. The entire soundtrack itself gives hints and suggestions towards how our character, our main character, is actually thinking and feeling, and gives us hints as to what his character is actually like. Ryan Gosling's performance in this is very subdued and very subtle, and many of the mannerisms and many of the things he's thinking and feeling may be lost on the casual observer. They are there, and it is still maintained. There's nothing that's been done to edit or water down this version of Drive. However, by changing the soundtrack, any kind of hint that there's a darkness to his character is lost. And the wonderful thing about many of the songs within the original soundtrack is that while on the surface they may appear very light and soft, deep down they are a lot darker. With the songs we have here, they're just light, and that's really just it. And the other thing I notice about the soundtrack is that it feels very like for like, which is great because it doesn't mean that it means that the soundtrack then doesn't feel particularly jarring and it doesn't feel so out there. But the problem then is that they sound so much like the original that to a certain degree you do start to ask the question, well, why bother? Some of the more notable songs and some of the ones I liked the most are the ones which are so radically different to the original, even if there are still hints of that. The song that they get to replace Real Hero, I think is good, great, but once again, it doesn't quite work the same way. The great thing about Real Hero is it appears twice. Some people get annoyed by the fact it does appear twice, but the reason is because it stands as a juxtaposition between the two different points which happen within the main character's narrative. In the earlier parts, it's because he is this this neighbourhood hero in some regards. He's looking after the woman and her child. He's looking after them and looking out for them. He's being nice and friendly to them, even though he is, in some regards, something of a bad guy. He does what many people do. He's being the nice, friendly neighbourhood chappy. And towards the end of the movie, it's a different kind of hero. It's the action movie kind of hero who gets into a fight at the end, gets stabbed, and his fate is somewhat ambiguous then. And it smacks of this strange irony in that the first time we hear it, he has everything he wants and he could ever need. In many regards, he's won because he has the girl, he has the child, and he has the life that he's always wanted, or at least it seems that he wants. At the end of it, even though he saved the day, even though he saved the girl and saved the child, he doesn't have his victory. He doesn't have the loving embrace. They don't walk away in the sunset together. He just bleeds, which itself adds a great tragedy to it. With this new song, it doesn't quite have that edge and that almost irony to it. But it's a good kind of irony. It's not the silly postmodern irony that we get with many movies. It feels strange with them being so similar in many regards to the songs. The Bastille one, whilst I enjoyed it, I think it was certainly one of the weaker ones, if not the weakest one, because it was so different to the original. I know that I said that many of the songs I liked the most were the songs that I thought were the ones that stuck so differently to the original, but this one felt different but not to the same degree. All the songs pretty much up to that point, I mean, fairly loose with the vocals. With this one, it's a lot more vocal heavy, whereas the song that it replaced was just a piece of music, and a piece of classical music if I remember correctly, whereas everything else was synth wave or very, very 80s sounding pop, which I know which is pretty much what synthwave is rather. With this one, it just felt a lot more poppy, far more poppier than the rest of them, which was odd. And I didn't think it added much to the scene. It felt a little bit too literal, as this is the moment when he's getting revenge on Nino and Co. I think Nino. Sorry, I know I should know the names of the characters in the movie better, seeing as how big a fan of it I am, but you know, whatever, that's not what it's about. It's about the soundtrack which I found to be great, but not appropriate for the movie. It just felt a little bit too different, and a little bit too distant from the original product. It felt very apart from the movie, as opposed to feeling a part of the movie. It didn't feel attached to it, it felt detached from it. Particularly when you bear in mind that many of the scenes were shot and filmed with those songs in mind. So just slapping a new song onto it, even if it's in the same style, even if it does sound like for like, just feels strange and out of place. And to the experiment's credit, it does show how it's very easy to change the mood and tone of the movie. The original was dark and brooding. This one is a lot more light and a little bit more fluffy, though not that light and fluffy, because the action that takes place within it is exactly the same. It's still as violent, it's still as dark within the action. However, the new soundtrack kind of makes Ryan Gosling's response to Standard coming back and telling him to stop interfering with his wife, girlfriend, fiancé thing, to be a little bit more like a moody teenager who's been told off. But maybe the fact that the music sounds so light and fluffy means that when that moment happens, it takes you a little bit more by surprise. And you've got to bear in mind that, like I say, it's still the original movie, it's still the same performance by Ryan Gosling, it's just without the music that hints that he isn't all that nice deep down. So, as a whole, what can I say about it? Well, I loved the music, I just didn't like the way that they used it. It didn't annoy me or aggravate me. it just kind of was what it was. I liked it only because I like Drive. No, hang on a minute, that makes it sound as if I did like the soundtrack. What I mean to say is that I like the songs, but I don't like them in this movie. And I like the original movie, it's just that together they don't match quite as well as they really should do. Which is a shame because the music is great. And yes, I am going to buy it. I'm going to download it at the first opportunity. And like I say, probably include it in a playlist with the original songs from Drive, because I think they're great and they do complement each other. It's just that within the movie itself, it doesn't complement anything. It does, like I say, feel very distant from the movie itself and what's going on. So that is it from me. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, however long it was. Thank you for watching and goodbye.